This is Spartan 117.
Anyone hear me? Over.
Isolate that signal. Master Chief, you mind telling me what you're doing on that ship?
Sir, finishing this fight.
Welcome back to Finish a Fight, a Halo podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Reiners.
And I'm your host, Alex Kendall.
And as always, we want to touch on, just some kind of news that's been going on with Halo recently, which there hasn't really been any. I know that 343 has stated that around January, we're going to see some flight tests for CE on PC. Mm-hmm. And then I saw, some quote-unquote concept art that had released for Infinite. But, I mean, it's nothing really new or insightful. Like, I've been seeing some videos pop up. It's like new Halo Infinite images. But it really just is exactly what we saw in that trailer this year.
Yeah, and that's about it for now. I mean, it's the holiday season. You're not going to see much going over the holiday because now you're at the lull period for gaming anyway. Because November's already over. Christmas has been had and gone, so games are purchased. So there's really no point in throwing stuff into a void right now.
Yeah, and I mean, most studios are taking those 2 weeks off. Like, none of them are really doing anything. I know that the devs from Infinite have been saying, listen, we are going to, start hyping this up here real soon. So who knows, maybe we'll see a trailer drop here soon, or maybe just more concept art or anything. They have been keeping a lot of information close to the chest, which is fine.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to see anything even close to gameplay, but I think the next trailer we'll get will probably be March, April.
Bro, we saw that Xbox Series X footage where you saw him running.
Shut up.
But yeah, I mean, overall, as Alex said, kind of a lull right now, which is fine. Even developers need a break because we can't be on them 24/7. With that being said, let's get into the topic at hand today. We're going to talk about Halo Bloodline. Yeah,
Halo Bloodline was a really cool read. So Halo Bloodline is the fourth comic series in the Halo franchise released through Marvel Comics. So it's a 5-part series that came together and it told the story of the Spartan Black Team, which we saw in Evolutions.
Yeah, the thing we just talked about.
Yeah, so we got a little bit of info in them. So this kind of dives in deeper, which I really like. And I like that they did that with Dutch and Romeo previously, where you get a little bit more backstory, and this does dive into that a bit.
This is like backstory on steroids. I mean, this really tells it from the beginning, essentially.
Which is fantastic, and I love it. And unfortunately, though, this would be the last Halo comic released through Marvel, and we jump ship to a horse. No, it goes to Dark Horse after this.
Yeah, because I think this was the last comic officially released through Bungie, even though Frank O'Connor, who I think around this time is working, for 343 Industries as it's being formed, had a hand in writing this, and we'll talk about that here soon. So let's talk about the writer and the artist. Fred Van Lente is a #1 New York Times best-selling American comic book writer from Chagrin Falls, Ohio. He was born February 14th, 1972, so he's a Valentine's boy, in Tacoma, Washington. Now, Lente would first spark his love for comic books when he found his father's copy of The Great Comic Book Heroes by Jules Feiffer. He said that as a child, it was the only book he wanted his mother to read to him. So I love things like that. It's like, out of all these books, he wants this almost like textbook to do that. And so later on in life, Lente has written comics for series such as Cowboys and Aliens, which he did co-create, X-Men, Marvel Zombies, Deadpool, Hercules, Spider-Man, and he wrote the comic book history of comics. He even wrote a play about Jack Kirby called King Kirby with his wife. Now, finally, he is the co-creator of Action Philosopher's comic book with artist Ryan Dunleavy. Now, Lente has won awards such as the American Library Association Best Graphic Novel for Teens with Cowboys and Aliens.
So this is our second longest award ever right there.
It's a mouthful. And then Wizard Magazine nominated him for breakout talent as a writer, and Ain't It Cool News called him the comic book writer to watch in 2008. Comics Should Be Good named Fred one of the 365 reasons to love comics.
Now, okay, that's just anybody. Not to knock the award, that's great, from 365 reasons. But it'd be pretty damn hard to not limit it down to 365 good writers. Hey,
Well,
Take it where you can get it.
I haven't read it. Maybe it's, to love comics. Maybe it's like, oh, you should love comics because of Spider-Man. You should love it because of
there's going to be something that's like, because they're made of paper. Because you can flip them. Like, they're small enough to have in your hands. Oh, that's number 102. Cool, thanks, comic thing.
I'm going to read this now. I'm actually going to find this and read it, and then I'll come back to you.
They have color, and they also don't have color. Yeah, they have pictures.
All right, I'm done. Anyway, that's about Fred right there. Then we've got Francis Portela. Francis Portela is a Spanish comic book artist who has worked as a penciler, inker, and cover artist for DC Comics, Dark Horse Comics, Wildstorm Production, Mage Comics, and Marvel Comics itself. Portela attended the Yosso School for Comic Book Artists, where he is now a teacher. He got his professional start working on Dark Horse Comics' Star Wars Tales. In 2003, he would start work for DC Comics' Justice League America Z. He has since gone on to work on Green Lantern, Araña, The Heart of the Spider, Captain Universe, X-23, Heroes for Hire, Black Panther, and Wolverine First Class.
Yeah, so, getting to know our writer and our illustrator. So now let's move on to writing the comic itself. With the success of Halo Uprising, we're taking it back a little bit. Marvel and Microsoft were looking to further expand the Halo universe in the comic medium and looked to Peter David and Fred Van Lente to write 2 new series. At the 2009 NYCC, Marvel announced 2 new comic books coming to the Halo universe. When Fred Van Lente was approached about writing, at the time called Spartan Black, for Halo, he accepted the job, but he had to quickly learn everything he could about the Halo universe since he had no knowledge about Halo prior.
Yeah, fake it till you make it.
I think this is like, we see this story that is going to keep reoccurring because what happened is, he went out, bought an Xbox, bought Halo 1 through 3, and then read The Fall of Reach and Contact Harvest. Not sure why those two, maybe because at the time Contact Harvest had just come out.
Yeah, he probably wanted to read like the first one and then see like where the universe was today type thing. That's my guess.
Which was, in retrospect, just went back.
Further back than the first one, yes. He's like, that planet's gone now.
But yeah, so after his research, he has since claimed that he is 110% a Halo fanatic. Again, I just love every time they're like, yeah, I'll accept this job. And then the second they send back that email, run to Walmart, buy everything they need.
100%.
And play through, which it makes me wonder how much time these comic book writers or these novelists are given time to prepare for this. Do they know, like, listen, we're going to give you a 2-month buffer or something like that, or who knows? But Frank O'Connor would develop the main story for Halo Bloodline. O'Connor and Kevin Grace would also then approve all scripts written by Lente. Lente would also state that when writing the comic, he would have access to the detailed character models along with the models that never made it into the game.
Very cool.
Makes me wonder what we see in this comic was supposed to be for the game and what was just created for the comic.
Well, exactly.
So now let's move on to the characters we see.
Yeah, so we start off with another Oracle, if you want to go with that, another monitor, 686 Ebullient Prism. We have Alexander Reeves, who's just mentioned in there as a name, and then we get into our black team. So we've got Margaret 053, who's black 1. We've got Roma, who's 143, black 2. Otto 031, who's black 3, and Victor 101, Zoe 101. They're the same people pretty much.
What Otto is such a dog name. They're like, where's the
No, Otto's from Rocket Power, and Otto is awesome.
So yeah, it's speculated that was the inspiration for Black 3, which was Otto from Rocket Power.
Exactly. He just wants to just chill on a Hawaiian island. And then Victor 101, black 4, and then you've also got our good old Teach, Franklin Mendez.
Kind of a dick in this one.
True. Iona Jubub, which praise be Jubub.
I thought when I was looking through this, I thought it was Jubes at their first.
Just Jubes. It's just Jujubes. He's trying to say that. We have Moreland, Ref Ptolemy. Then we have Roland Fremont, who's mentioned only, and then Thon Ptolemy.
Yeah, so with that being said, learning some of the backstory, let's move on to the official summary of Halo Bloodline. And I love this first issue cover because it definitely we see Spartan Black and the AI Iona, and they're all gathered around something, looking down at something, which isn't really part of the actual comic, but it's one of those things that's enticing.
It's kind of like an FPS, like not FPS. Sorry, first person. I'm so used to saying FPSs. It's a first person look, as if you are who they are looking at, like they're looking right at you.
Like you've had one too many. You wake up the next morning, you're like, I am in an ONI facility. I shouldn't be. But I do like this, and we even see Iona is different looking than the usual AI, because they're all like, it's a pirate, it's a Viking, it's a Greek god, and she's for the most part almost has like this futuristic spacesuit on.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the first that we, I think, thus see in the series. Because for the most part in the games and stuff, we've only seen Cortana. We've heard rumors of some other things. But we're also seeing an AI that we are now getting that's kind of pure red, which we're going to see later on as well. Does it mean much?
No.
No. But it's at least changing the art style up and showing that it's not just that kind of futuristic blue of 2001. Where that's kind of like all of it was. So it's kind of showing that there's differentiations in kind of what the characters look like. And it works really well with this being, a character of African descent and kind of matching skin tones. I think it works really well for this AI. That's Alex's art critique of 2019, which is almost done. So there you go, snuck it in.
So yeah, we have this first issue, and it goes into this like official report that I think is coming from, who is it coming from? Is it Iona?
The first one is coming from...
Roland Fremont.
Yeah, so it's officially from Fremont, and it's kind of so these are great, because this is the summary of currently the where we're going in this issue. And the ones that we see sequentially after this give a summary of it, and they're mostly from Iona. But this first one is, from Admiral Roland Fremont, and it's breaking down where, why, when, and how we're starting this comic off.
Yeah, and it's talking about, what is that, Operation Blowback?
Yes, it's Operation Blowback, and what they're saying is that they are reassigning one team of 4 Spartan 2s to be known as Black Team that are going to come together, and they're going to enter and be quote-unquote captured by the Covenant and basically try and pull information, disrupt this trade line that they're figuring out the Covenant are doing. And so it's going to be a bunch of plainclothes Oni officers and these 4 Spartans.
Yep, so automatically you're already just like, this is like kind of Spartan Gray Team-esque stuff going behind enemy lines and things like that.
It's just more saturated.
Yeah, and so we're on, was it Long Time Coming is the ship? Yeah, and so they're talking about, they're getting ready to do a slip space jump. And they see, what is that pops up on screen? They see some kind of imagery or code that pops up on the screen.
Yeah, so they're getting like a, so as we have our captain, who is an Oni officer who's kind of talking to Iona about this, and like, how's our things doing? How's our quote-unquote prospecting equipment doing? Which is basically the Spartans below, we learn later. And as they're getting ready to jump, Iona says, wait, I'm getting this weird burst transmission of a pi constant baseline. I don't know.
The pi?
I don't know exactly what it means. Smarter people tell me. I don't. But it's basically, they start breaking these charts, and she doesn't really know because it's so rudimentary and basic that she doesn't even have like a computing power for it.
She says it's complex, but it's also so simple, and it's not Covenant nor human.
And so we start to get this, and as she kind of ends that page on and too simple, we then jump over to the clarity of faith.
Yeah, we see Covenant. And I told Alex before we started recording, I think I like this art style the best so far for these comics. I mean, for the most part, the Covenant art's so detailed, and the coloring is awesome.
And I would say for the most part, I think this is really where we get almost the truest to game. As far as art style goes and how the Covenant are portrayed.
It's beautiful.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and so, we're on that ship, and kind of almost like the same conversation is happening between these two elites, which we learn down the line, jumping a little ahead, they're like brothers, I think, literal, or
they're clan brothers.
Yeah, they're from the same line lineage.
Exactly. So the shipmaster that we see in here with gold armor is kind of like the big brother to this current red armor elite that we see.
Yeah.
That we'll get introduced to as we get closer to it. But right now we just kind of see that they're having this kind of idea of, is that a human comm that we're picking up? Because it's definitely not Covenant. So both ships are kind of coming to that same conclusion, and both are pulling up that same odd star chart.
Yeah, and the red elite here, he's kind of speculating that this is something from the Forerunners. It's, this is like truly the start of like the great journey, or this is where we can go. Like, he's jazzed about it. And so the gold elite is just like, Don't worry about it. Basically, both humans and the Covenant are having the same kind of thing. Like, let's just do the slip space jump. It doesn't really matter. We don't have time to worry about this, and it doesn't seem like a threat.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, why are we worrying about this? We need to get this because Covenant's running supplies. They're the kind of protecting ship that's going ahead of them. So like, we need to get there, clear the space out, see what's going on. And so this is where we get introduced to their names. So the Gold Elite, Thon. So if we continue to go with Thon or Gold Elite, who we're talking about, and the Red Elite is Ref. So Ref, like I said, is kind of like the younger brother in a way to Thon, who's like protected him his whole life. And we'll dive into their story a little bit more. But yes, we get introduced to these two elites on this ship who, once again, same conversation going back and forth. And then we jump back to our human ship where our AI Iona is kind of saying, I honestly, I can't figure this out. Give me, I think she said 30 seconds. And he's like, nope, no time. Boom, hit slip space button. And
which 30 seconds is even a long time for an AI.
Yeah. And actually, I think it's even 90 seconds. I think she says 90 seconds. And
there's that parallel with the Covenant going on right now.
Yeah, so it jumps back and forth. It kind of gives you that we're coming to a head type thing. It's like panel for Covenant, panel for human, panel for Covenant. And as both hit their slip space jump, Iona says, no, wait. It's not just a message. It's a warning. And it was a warning that there is basically all this, what we look like, and you kind of infer is debris at first, but then you kind of notice that it's laser trails.
Yeah, and I think it's almost like bullets because you see in the next panel with the corpses, there's like bullets lodged in these corpses, and like that captain that kind of rushed everyone to their death, or maybe that's just glass shards from the cockpit.
Yeah, because
because
we're getting, because originally it looks like almost plasma fire, but then you see both the Covenant and human ships hitting with that same exact plasma fire.
Yeah.
So obviously it's kind of like, what is this weird thing? They both got this message. A lot of you can infer where that's going, if it's not human or Covenant. But we continue on, and we start to see...
That's always the theme. It's not human. It's not Covenant.
Yeah.
What is it?
Oh, what is it? And so at this whole time, Iona's kind of doing what these Marvel comics have done a lot, is having that interperson perspective.
Yeah.
So you get all these little panels of her kind of saying, we're not going into this as a war. We're not going into this as a fight. Now it's at survival because both ships have now crash landed on this moon.
Yeah, and we see the crew is now dead. They're all those glass shards lodged in them and everything. Ship is destroyed, and this is where we get introduced to our main characters. Really, we get introduced to Spartan Black, who break out of their cryo, and I love this shot right here of all of them. Where it said Spartan Team Black sound offs. Black 1 present. They all say Black 2, Black 3, Black 4 present. And this is the first time we actually see them in the comic. And I know people have stated, I would have never noticed, but this is slightly different than Master Chief's Mjolnir armor, in Halo 2 and 3, because it's been stated, I think Frank O'Connor said that this was like a prototype Skunk Works thing. And they even actually refer to it as like crappy Skunk Works armor in Blunt Instruments in Evolutions. I think it was like Spartan 3 or something said that about the armor.
Yeah, because if you look at all this and you kind of want to infer where all this is from, and if you take Master Chief's story compared to others, he's been singled out pretty much by himself. So you're looking at whatever people have been with him have either done the armor with him or changed it up. So each team, after, they get off base and they go and start fighting the Covenant, there's probably different Oni sectors that work with them that start producing different armor. So you're going to kind of see that and build the lore around there.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is the first time we see them, and Iona talks about how they basically just get to work.
Yeah,
and
trying to repair the ship.
And what little things they say to each other, they say are like almost inside jokes. And then one of them said something about, the Yenmei swarm. Now that was a rush, of course, got a reference back to the what we just learned about them. But I think it's cool. And then this is the shot where she's kind of starting to talk about their kind of connection with each other. And we see this panel, and we see this a lot, where it's just Spartan Black in their armor, and then the next panel is them standing in the same positions, but it's them on the planet Reach when they were trainees. I think that's really cool. And again, we see that a lot. And sometimes it's replacing them being Spartans with them as kids in the present. Sometimes it's flashbacks. It's really cool.
It's done really well because this whole comic is trying to show the familial ties they built. And that all of what they're doing right now, because we will see a huge aspect of what happened back then, influence what their relationship is right now.
Yeah.
So they're trying to like tie that in. And like you said, I think it's so excellent whenever they do these panels because it's that same frame just drawn as a kid. I think that's just so well done.
Again, they do it beautifully. But yeah, so we see Spartan Black meeting Iona, and at first she's almost like this anime child version of herself. And she basically said, oh, like, my system's kind of triggered me to look like this. It's kind of like a cover.
Yeah.
Even though an AI is an AI, you're a child AI versus a adult AI.
Yeah, I think it's probably human error in whoever was kind of the brainchild of this. And that's probably how they dealt with it. So you possibly see a rub off on that or something along those lines.
Yeah, and I like even, Spartan Black, who I don't think it identifies who this is at the time, is like, are you scared? And I was like, aren't you? And they're just like, nope, another day at the office. So they're basically, like you see, they come out of cryo, they're ready to go. Yeah, as I said, they've been putting out fires and whatnot. And yeah, and Alex just pointed this out to me, is that this panel is each visor for the Spartans after this panel, after they introduce themselves to Iona, has a Roman numeral 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, because I remember, you don't notice it at first. I was talking to Alex about this. I was like, how are we supposed to differentiate?
Yeah, not until like I finished the first of the 5 comics that I even like noticed it because they put it very blatant at that point. But yeah, so this is, what are we, 6 pages, 7 pages, 8 pages in or something like that? And we're now just seeing that this is going to be the way they differentiate with showing the Roman numerals on their visor of who they are.
Yeah, like clearly that's not what actually their visors look like, but for the sake of this comic,
such a great creative decision.
They did something like that, which is awesome. And I think it really, the second you notice that, it gives you ease as to, okay, now I know who is who.
Well, sorry to interrupt, but this is especially because this is the first time within a game comic book that we have 4 Spartans in identical armor on the same mission.
Yeah.
So it really helps with that because there's nothing like that we see even in the game of
visually.
Visually. They look exactly the same visually. So like with Reach, obviously everyone had their own armor and unique stuff with them. Same thing we're seeing in just even Blue Team was separate with that. So we're seeing this to be, like I said, excellently done.
Yeah, and so this is the point where they realize, like, we don't have a lot of time on this planet. Like, they have, like, what, an hour or so?
I think it starts with 90 minutes of oxygen left in their suits.
Yeah, and we start to learn that the Covenant will also have this same issue, that they need time, like, they need to find oxygen or a place where they can breathe. So then 3 out of 4 of them move out on a Warthog to go investigate where they're at.
Yep, so Black 1, 3, and 4.
Yep, and so we start to see even more parallels because I think at one point Spartan 4 makes them stop to like look at all the architecture because we can see a bunch of downed later on. Jumping ahead, he makes them stop to look at all the ships in the area because they're all damaged.
Yeah, because it's like, ooh, someone's making a collection here because they notice that it's Covenant ships, it's UNSC ships.
There's like a frigate right there.
Yeah, it's a huge graveyard, and some of this has been there a while because you're seeing like moss and shrubbery and stuff growing on it.
Yeah, but then we move to the Covenant, who are kind of now they're both like they're all waking up, and we see. I think at one point, as of right now, it's just a handful of grunts on this ship, 3 elites now too, because one of them just died, and some hunters. And basically, it's a very small group of Covenant. And I think Red Elite, whose name escapes me, Thon?
No, Thon Gold.
Ref
Red.
Yes. So Ref here is getting, becoming more of a religious zealot and is like, the great journey is starting. Like,
this has to be a sign that we crashed here.
We were crashed here. We survived. We were called here. And instantly Thon shoves his face into kind of like a destroyed area, just basically telling him to shut up.
Yeah, like you have to listen to your shipmaster. I know we're brothers, but stop your rhetoric. Like that rhetoric is for the prophets, not for us.
Yeah, which we kind of see some elites that are kind of not caring so much about like the great journey in the faith as compared to others. In this shot right here, if you notice, sometimes their mandibles are odd. Like in that shot right there with Thon, like I don't know. That's one of the only things where it differentiates from the rest of the current art style in Halo at the time,
There's
which
more
would
of
have
a
been
separation of like almost 2 jaws at times instead of like 4 that form 1 jaw.
Yeah, like instead of being a split jaw, it's 2 separate jaws. But yeah, because I think at the time, Halo 3 art style was what was around for them to reference. But yeah, so moving back, this is where we then, we go back to Spartan Black. And this is again where I see that Spartan 4 is kind of noticing like, clearly something's going on here. And then we go back to a panel of them on Reach, that same parallel of like, oh, he's always been like this.
Yeah, he's like the curious one that has to figure stuff out. And yeah, because we jump back. We're still in that Warthog, but all the Spartans are out of armor. It's just a really cool parallel. I definitely recommend checking that art out.
And even then, we see on their T-shirts are all Roman numerals to even help you identify who's who.
Because yeah, now you can actually tie the face to the Spartan.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool. But then in the next scene, huge explosion, and we see a Wraith. And this Wraith is huge compared to the ones in the games, because I think it shows like 4 people in the cockpit, which, clearly artistic liberties, which is fine. I think it's cool. But then we're having these mirrored panels again of Spartan Black fighting on Reach versus fighting now, and it shows them having conversations with each other on Reach versus now, kind of saying they've been doing this since they were children.
Yeah, and because we go back a little bit when Iona was talking about them and saying that if they talked on the ship when they were repairing it, it was half-finished sentences because everyone figured out what the other half of it was, or it was just like weird inside quips.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is with podcasting. Instead, we don't know what we're talking about. We just keep cutting each other off.
Yeah, because that's just how it goes. Because otherwise, if you guys just listen to us and you just hear us babble a bit, you think we know. Honestly, I don't even know what I'm doing right now.
But then this is where we see this Matrix style.
It's if Doc Ock banged a snail.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that. So whatever the snail female villain equivalent is in the Spider-Man universe, and Doc Ock had a kid. Maybe they made love, not so much banged, but, they wanted this kid.
They wanted this weird, squiddish snail baby.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden, this comes out of nowhere. And it's got like almost like this giant tank on the back. And, so all of a sudden they're confused, because I think at the time they're still under the impression that it's Covenant. So then that's the end of issue 1, is where we see this giant love child come out, and that's it. It just ends with, what the hell, from Spartan Black.
Yeah, it's basically like futuristic Lovecraft.
I'll go with that.
If that's what we had to deal with.
Cyberpunk Lovecraft.
Yeah. Splovecraft.
That probably exists, and it actually probably sounds really cool. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, so that's the end of the first episode, or that's the end of the first issue. And so then going on to the next issue, we see 2 members of Spartan Black trying to grab each other, as one of them are getting carried away by the Doc Ock tentacles.
And in this, we're still not seeing who it is. All we're seeing, because the visor thing's not there, it's just one is being pulled away, and it's almost that, what's that religious painting where like the dude's touching God?
Like Creation of Man or something.
Yeah, that one. It's almost that, but reverse of it.
But it's just humans and no nudity.
Exactly. Just tentacles and Spartans. You know how it is.
And now we have another report. And this one's from Iona, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and so we are not having a good day. And kind of gives, like, Operation Blowback kind of went, in the can, and we, she explains everything that just happened in the previous
And it's great because
issue.
I think this is one of the most clever ways to do it. Because I think in the ones previous, they were just really kind of written statements about the book. They were just like, oh, like, tune in next time for this.
Yeah.
And this actually ties it into the Halo universe of being like, this is a report that is kind of going back to Oni, that's kind of encrypted and kind of going through these things. And it basically ends with, oh, this giant tentacle robot monster thing is grabbing people. That's what we're dealing with right now. I'll report when I have more.
Please help.
Yeah.
Please help. Yeah. So then we have Halo Bloodline, Chapter 2. So yeah, we instantly start with this giant explosion going on in between the 3 Spartan Black Team members. And instantly we have Iona narrating, emphasizing that relationship and that, family they have.
And they've been training this since they could remember.
And then, it shows a panel of them with really cool paintball guns on Reach, and right under them are their current selves. Really cool reflection. They really hammer this mirroring and parallel images throughout the comic. As we've said, it's cool.
And it does it so well, because these panels, give us that almost like freeze frame breakdown, like going like character to character and pausing on them, because it shows that, Spartan 3, as we learn, because they've got their little insignia on their arm, is heavy weapons and artillery. Spartan 1's is tactic and leadership, and Spartan 4 is recon and sniper.
Yeah, we don't care about Spartan 2.
Listen, Spartan 2 is just chilling. We learned about Spartan 2 in Evolutions that, she doesn't do so well trying to communicate with Yaname.
So then, it does show this panel of them taking out what we learn as Spartan Red Team with the paintballs. Clearly a game of capture the flag. There you go. This comic confirms capture the flag is canon. It's a real thing. That was a joke, by the way. But yeah, we see that this Red Team is pretty disgruntled about losing. But then we move on to now we're back to the Covenant. And again, we see inside this Wraith, and there's 2 elites and like 3 or 4 grunts in there. As we all know, that's not the case, artistic liberty, but I kind of like that he has, it's like almost like a real tank. He has like, he's controlling it and looking through that
It's like
visor.
a periscope type thing. Like he's kind of like looking straight through that.
Yeah, and so again, Ref is like, oh, look, told you, brother.
Like, look at that.
Forerunner.
That's a Forerunner thing. Like, we're meant to crash here. We're going on. And then this is where you find the best character of this entire comic, which is Jubub.
Jubub, yep. And I got no escape from Jubub. Like, on the plasma turret firing at this Forerunner machine. Or at least we're going to assume it's not confirmed as of yet. Just FYI that it's Forerunner, but come on.
If it's going after both of them, just assume it is.
Yeah, but I will say this is nothing like we've seen with Forerunner architecture.
No.
I was really surprised to see almost that it was. I assumed, but I was like, this could be something different as I was reading it until it was confirmed. Spoiler alert. But,
yeah, I guess you can take it back to it's almost like those big dudes in Halo 2 that grab your tank.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of akin to that.
Yeah, it's kind of like another option that has been created for a certain purpose, and we're slowly going to learn what this purpose is as, unfortunately, Jubub is grabbed, pulled from the tank, and shoved into this just big pink squishy vat.
Jello.
Yeah, it's just some rhubarb Jello. Let's go with that.
But yeah, and then we see a hunter meet the same fate. And it is almost like a Jello because they're just sticking them into this. It's like a tank, but there's no walls on the side. They just stick them into the side and they sink in there.
So yeah, as we see the hunter go into our rhubarb Jello pudding, you notice that Black Team's trying to figure out like what can we do to disable these things, and they notice that there's this little ray gun type thing that kind of shoots the energy beam that you see in all the other like Sentinels and whatnot, and they go for that base where this emitter is, and so 4 goes ahead, and so 4 opens fire with the sniper rifle, and you see the round go right up to where it is, and it paffs against it and explodes. It's an explosive round. It explodes on an energy shield that's surrounding that conduit.
Yep.
And protects it. And so, they realize this, and so unfortunately, Black One says, "Oh, I'm out. Can you throw me another magazine? This is going to come in handy later." So as Black One's trying to do that, Black One then gets grabbed by the love child, tentacle monster, and gets yanked up. But we see that Black One also like drops or throws the magazine, and it gets lodged into that conduit where the energy weapon was, where they were trying to shoot before.
Yeah. And so, now we have a hunter, a grunt, and a Spartan who have now been kidnapped. And then we see that this thing is laying waste on that Wraith that we just saw.
And as we're seeing, it's not just one. I think we're up to at least 3 at this current moment.
Because it's like 1 per thing they capture.
Yeah, it's because originally I thought it was just 1 going around. Then I started to see, it makes sense. So there's 3 thus far. And we see that 2 of them concentrate a blast on the Wraith tank and just explode it.
Yeah, and somehow everyone in that Wraith tank survives.
Same way everyone on that Covenant ship pretty much survived except for 1 elite.
Well, something fell on him, that's why. And chopped him in 2.
Exactly.
But then Ref gets taken now. So now Ref is now a prisoner. And I want to point out that they have they almost have like space helmets on.
And I think it's because there's no oxygen for them. Because the grunts have the methane to breathe, but they were talking about how, we don't have oxygen. We have to figure this out. So they're wearing their kind of like what you would see the elites jumping around in space would be wearing.
Yeah. So it's now 3 and 4 left, and they're making their way towards Doc Ock and Snail Woman's children. And, they got to now rescue them because I will say this tank is holding a grunt and an elite. So depending on the size of you, we can fit some multiple ones in. But yeah, so now they are off to go follow these things wherever they're going.
And I love this panel we see on the bottom of the page. It's 4 and 3 like kind of sprinting off, and it gives you those like anime run lines next to it, and it's just like a really, really cool shot that kind of shows one, the burst of speed of Spartans, but just gives like the immediacy of what's going on.
I read that there was a cut panel where they were actually doing the Naruto run.
It was. They had it behind them with like the guns floating around them with their mind powers. It was a really cool shot. Unfortunately cut after Area 51, but you know, things happen.
But yeah, so then they're around this, some kind of structure that, again, does not look Forerunner. This looks more Covenant than it does Forerunner. It's not Covenant, but, you know.
But I like the art style because it almost reminds you of possibly like early Forerunner stuff the Covenant kind of got into to kind of attribute how their style looks.
Yeah, this almost like, adaptation of it. Like, this was the stuff they saw to create what they have now.
Exactly.
But yeah, so they realize all these things are going into this, whatever building it is. And clearly, it's just the top of the building it leads down because it's a very small like tower pylon thing. And then we see them start to move their way down. But Iona is saying...
So they're asking Iona because they're like, we need to get in that place. Like because they'd been talking before. Iona had ran a scan of the planet, which we're going to learn is just a moon, to see where they can go to find any oxygen. And they discover there's this crazy underground cave system. And they realize that these Doc Ock babies are going over to where they were going anyway. So like, we have to get in there and see what's going on.
Yeah. I even love this scene of like when Iona is in like her head, you know, and we see all these, some I think like Forerunner symbols and other things, all these symbols around her. And she's in this almost like color palette area of like yellows, purples, and reds that she got from the 70s or something when that was popular. I don't know. But
hey, it's come back now. I love it.
But it is every time we see Iona like in her element, it's a cool
so well
scene.
done.
It's a cool scene.
Yeah, because this is where they're asking like, hey, can you basically hack that door to keep it open? And so she's going through all this Forerunner symbolatry, and this is where she's like, it would take me 90 seconds to unravel it. And then I love that they're like, you know, can I just get a straight answer? I don't know what that means. And she just goes, run like hell.
Yeah, and that's when they make their way into the closed door, but unfortunately, we lose the sniper rifle here.
Yeah, it's used as a little jimmy to hold the door open so they can like do an Indiana Jones slide under, jump over sniper rifle.
Or akin to Star Wars.
You know.
That actually didn't work when they were in the trash compactor, so never mind.
Yeah, no.
More Indiana Jones.
More Indiana Jones for it.
Yeah, but yeah, they break it, so now they're in this structure with kind of at a loss what to do, but we also see that they are attacked by very familiar Halo 2 and 3 Forerunner Sentinels, or even Combat Evolved as well. Like, they take all those out because they, you know, clearly the Forerunners on this planet, Forerunner tech doesn't really acknowledge them as reclaimers or anything like that. Clearly this is something completely different, but they do end up taking all of those out. And that's when they kind of realize that, you know, this is an unknown species.
Yes.
Because they're still kind of maybe under the impression this is Covenant, but this is what Iona says, you know, you've discovered a herefore unknown alien species. And Ford just says, okay, yay for us.
Yeah. And just like, oh, neat. Glad to put that on my resume.
Yeah, but this is where then they notice that there are the Covenant outside waiting for them. And this is where this debate starts between 3 and 4 as to what they should do.
Exactly, because we're now seeing all this Covenant language that Jesse hasn't translated yet. So good.
No, that is new. That symbolism is new,
Well,
right?
okay,
there.
because that's Sangheili. So that's Sangheili because he's giving back, because they have a translation going on. They're like, Iona, can you translate this and figure out what they're trying to say? And they realize it's a eulogy because Ref had been taken. So you have Thon is kind of doing this eulogy, like, you're my brother.
He's mourning.
Yeah, he's mourning him. He's saying, like, you're my brother. Like, I cannot lose you. I will be there to save you. And so that's when 4 is kind of like, okay, you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend currently.
Yeah, so we kind of need to figure out, like, they can probably get in if they want to, but we're low on ammo. We should probably team up with them.
And this is now the start. So as this conversation is going on, we get Iona's point of view from being in 4's head.
And she says she has a link to all their helmets almost. Or she's talking about she can kind of learn the history of all of them. She's in Black's system.
Yeah, she's in
unquote.
Black's system, but she's like tapping into Four's knowledge and kind of what he knows. And it shows that 4 and 1 are passing a note, and then eventually they're making out in the shower and showing that, their relationship akin to something else, to show that maybe 4, because it's going to come up that he's the one who proposes that they team up with the Covenant, might have an ulterior motive that's a little bit more than saving a comrade. It's saving possible lover, possible, whatever, that's a little bit more bonded.
So, yeah, because, in training, they were an item at one point. So that's when this debate starts, and they're realizing that, what do we do? This place is huge. We need ammo, and we need to find Spartan 1.
Yeah.
And that's when, who pulls the pistol on who?
So 3 pulls it on 4.
Yeah, 3 pulls a pistol on 4.
Because 4, rationalizes. He's like, I get it. Like, they are enemy, but they're mourning a brother. We're mourning a sister. We need all the help we can get. He's like, I've got 1 clip left, and it's already half empty in my gun. What do you have? He's like, a clip maybe? And so like, we need them. And so as they start to open the door, Black 3 pulls the pistol and says, oh, I also still got my Magnum.
Yeah, and then we see this shot of going back. It's like they're showing almost like now this is where they're taking their childhood forms from Reach and putting it in present day, almost like replacing, their current Spartan state to show like, what the hell is going on. Spartan 3 saying, you've never listened to anyone even when you're a kid. And Spartan 4 is just like, or what's that right here? You want the sole glory of rescuing her, and that's it. Like, be her knight in jet black armor. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Clever with a gun to their head.
Yeah,
Love those characters.
And it's pretty great, too, because this is almost like as if they're not seeing each other's armor. They're seeing them as they were, or kind of as they are. And we then see, as 4 says 3, like, I'm not even going to dignify that with a response. Iona is looking back through 4's memories. And it shows that 3 stumbled into 4 and 1, kind of making out in the showers, who then he reports to Mendez. Mendez then, from what we just see, reprimands 4.
Yeah, barges in and catches them. So yeah, 4 is in this kind of holding cell. And then we see Red Team that just got their asses kicked by them, making their way in with these battering rams or whatever.
Batons.
But yeah, batons, and, beat the hell out of 4, we see. And then, now it cuts back to the present of them debating, whether or not what they should do. Like, should we let them in or not? And Iona's,
I like this part.
Yeah, Iona comes in and says, testosterone doesn't happen to be one of my 306 languages, so I may have been missing something here. But do you want me to open the door or not?
Yeah.
So, I mean, learn some more languages. But yeah, so we see that standoff, and finally,
and this is where I first noticed, because obviously it's right in your face of 3 and 4, and I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you see the Roman numerals on there, and it's even like the lighting is different. It's cool.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. But yeah, we do see that the Spartans let them in after Iona comes out and translates and says, listen, this is who we are. We need your help. This is a temporary alliance, which is cool because other than a few others, maybe other than just the Mona Lisa, we don't see those alliances. Am I wrong? Have we seen any yet?
I mean, we've always seen it in Halo 2, and like we've seen like the Great Schism and stuff happen with that. But that was kind of like an all or nothing force, not more of like, okay, under this certain circumstance, we are going to be together. I think this is, yeah, you're right. Besides Mona Lisa, where we have an elite, but even then, those circumstances were life or death. This isn't necessarily life or death. This is more like we have a common enemy, we have a common interest.
This is the path of least resistance.
Exactly.
Essentially, yeah. So they do team up, and they're going to do this. But then we see now these Lovecraft tank things making their way into the base of this facility.
Yeah, and we see him go down a shaft. It's a and we see him go down this kind of elevator shaft that we've seen in various other Forerunner structures, where it's just obviously made for flight and not made for walking like boots.
Mm-hmm.
And
we're on it today.
Exactly. And we start to see that the floaty rhubarb jelly pies are now taking their captives to these hexagons. It very much looks almost like a beehive setup.
Yeah, and so they all get spit out and thrown into whatever these are.
To correct your term on them, they get split and then they clunk. So, for those who want to know.
Sorry, my onomatopoeias are off today. Yeah, so they emerge within those tanks, and then some kind of barrier appears on top. And I like that Ref tries to offer, like, listen, clearly we're gonna die, almost like a priest visit,
like a last rites.
Yeah, like priest visit death row inmates to try to get them to convert. This kind of thing. Like, listen, in our last our final hours here, I can teach you about the great journey, and you can come with us. And Spartan 1's like, I'll pass, which is so interesting to me because they don't know about this alliance. But he's saying, clearly this is the guy who is, he says he's a lay preacher. So he's trying to convert basically anyone, because we know we've talked about before in previous books and comics how the elites are confused as to why prophets don't want the humans to come in because they kind of respect them. So
they see they see him in battle. They see that they have almost that same warrior respect. They're in their own mind they're a lesser warrior race than themselves, but that doesn't put them out of the covenant for any reason other than they've been told that they're heretics.
Yeah, well, I mean, they respected the grunts after the rebellion.
Exactly.
So they see the potential, and so in this instance, they're like, listen, like we can die, under the same banner of religion if you want. I always found that so fascinating to me, so fascinating. But yeah, so then now they're in these tanks as well, individual tubes. There's Ref, there's Spartan 1, and then we have a hunter and a grunt total.
Listen. By name, Jub,
yes.
It's our Jubbub.
Jubbub. We have the Jubbub, the man, the myth, the legend.
It kind of sounds like the beginning to the Ewok song in, was it Return of the Jedi? Or was the one before that? Where it's like...
There's no Ewoks in the one before. So it's Return of the Jedi.
So yeah, Return of the Jedi, where it's just like dub, 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 dub. That's what it sounds like.
I'm actually blanking on that.
Hold on.
I get your gist, though. I get what you're talking about.
But yeah, so we get him in there. We get him in the little honeycombs. And this is where we get blue text. And we get greetings. I am the monitor of line installation 1-4. And this is where we meet 686 Ebullient Prism. And it goes on to say that my function is to collect and inspect any and all specimens captured within this sector for evidence of immunity to infestation by the flood. So this is where we're seeing its testing facility.
Yeah. And then, I love it. It's like Spartan 1's like, I have no idea who you are or what the flood is, but I didn't volunteer for this, so release me. And this is when the monitor is like, excuse me. This isn't voluntary, just an FYI. And then instantly zaps this hunter, and we see that it explodes into a bunch of the little worms, the Mechalek, and then that's when it's like, ooh, interesting. This is actually, the monitor's like, this is multiple little guys. This isn't just one big guy. It's like they zap him, and then they go and he runs off and does a test, and then comes back.
Yeah, because he even says right away, this being a colony and being so small, it actually may be able to avoid the infection.
Yeah.
Because it's not one host, it's many tiny hosts that you can't just take over.
No central nervous system or anything like that, because they communicate telepathically. I don't know if that's been established yet in the lore, but that is how they communicate. So yeah, that's the end of this issue. Ref and Spartan 1 are kind of looking on like, uh-oh, that's going to be us here very soon. Yeah, and then now we move on to the third issue. In this cover, we see Spartan 1, or a Spartan Black, jumping on some kind of ledge who are very small, but then you see the shadow that's grand in the background.
Yeah, and it shows great. And right away, you notice that they have a carbine. So you're already noticing that they have Covenant weapons, so kind of gives you an idea of where we're going with this.
Yeah, so then now we have another report.
Yeah, so another report from Iona that basically says that, they've recapping a little bit from the first issue. They went through slip space. They crashed, saying that they've been a part of Black 4's armor. Didn't really have a choice. And still telling the Black 2's back at the ship. So just reiterating that.
Yep.
And just saying, okay, we're now apparently trying to work with, these Covenant. And once again, I'll let you know what happens.
Yeah. I'll give you an update when you get one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so this is at the point to now we're seeing Thawne and one of the Spartan Black Team members talking, and I love this point. It's Spartan 3, and at this point, we see the grunts all hovered around Iona, and they're like, ooh, we want one, and she just says, no touch.
I love that the grunts go, ooh, the big human has a smaller human inside of it. I want one.
But she's just like, no touch, and then it's like, ugh, and like they like scatter away from it.
And you can already tell like the hostility of Thawne and 3, because 3's like, man, this is going on forever, and Thawne's like, oh, you tiny baby humans need a nap? Like, we just walked a little bit. Like,
yeah, you tire so easily. I love your ad-lib tiny baby humans.
yeah, pretty much. And he's like, you need a nap? And then that's when they're like, they're doing the whole macho back and forth. Like, if I'd see 4, I'd shove it up you sideways, blah, blah, blah. and that's when 4 is like, dude, shut up. Like, just chill. We need to figure this out. And that's when the discussion happens. Like, hey, this place is made for flying. And we need to get down this huge shaft.
Yeah, so we see like the grunts grab onto the hunter and this jump down this giant shaft, and they're just like, woo, let's go again.
Yeah, I love it because you have Black 3 and 4 and Thawne like climbing down, and they're like, how is your little tiny dudes gonna make it, like their tiny limbs? And like they don't say anything. I love like the middle panel. It's just the hunter with them crashing to the ground, and that's when I think it's probably 3 goes, okay, now I have to shoot them.
Yeah.
And Thawne goes, at last, human, we find grounds for agreement.
So and it's all it takes is one little thing like that to start the ball rolling for that camaraderie. But immediately Thawne's shot in the arm by sentinels. So that's when now another battle ensues. And then once again, we have to now fight, but we see that luckily it didn't kill Thawne.
Yeah, because originally, like, it looks like it pierces through him. Like, you see purple blood go, and, you have the grunts, like, scream out, ship boss, and incoming. So then you have...
I thought that was an onomatopoeia, like, ship boss.
yeah, ship boss. Ship boss. No, some cruisers and some bam bams are. But yeah, we have 3 and 4 returning fire with the hunter below them firing up.
Almost gets one of them.
Almost gets 3. And so 4 finishes off what's left in the assault rifle, and as like all hope's lost, like no ammo in it, you see that Thawne like comes up, blood still like oozing out of the arm, but like an energy sword, and is like, you draw my blood, you inferior being, like for that I draw your own, and just like slices one of the sentinels in half.
Yeah, and then throughout this, one of the, they're like, well, the Spartans are out of ammo, we're in trouble.
So the battle finishes, they empty their clips, like, I got nothing. And Spartan 4, I believe, goes and checks on Thawne and is like, you gonna be okay to go on? And Thawne's like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, your wound, it's not serious, right? And he's like, what do you mean? And it's kind of that like, elites like, we'll go on until they die. Like, they're like, of course I'm going on. Like, I don't understand your question type thing. It's like, oh, okay, well, whatever. So, so it gets us to the next panel, and this is where we come to a crossroads. So, it's a nice frost poem, taking which road are you going to take?
Yeah, fork in the road.
Fork in the road. And so they're saying, Iona's like, trying to tell them, yes, it's a left and right path, but where you have to go is directly straight. She's like, I don't know which path to take.
Yeah.
And so they start to kind of go on and figure out, like, which way should we go? And at this point, you see that 3 is kind of digging through the remains of the sentinels, and gleaming in his helmet with his sweet numeral 3 is a laser.
Oh, yeah. I actually didn't notice that you could see that in the visor.
Yeah, so when
I looked over that, yeah.
When we first see it, it's like, oh, what do we have here? And he's like digging through. And this is where, now I believe it's 4, because 3 I think is still digging around.
Yeah.
And, they're talking about there's no way that we cannot split the Covenant up. Because 4 recommended, okay, how about, you and 3 go that way, and then I'll take your hunters and your grunts, and we'll go this way. And so then the argument kind of ensues, like, this is why the humans are losing, is because you don't live up to your morals. Like, if something needs to change, you just change it. You don't live up.
For your convenience,
yeah, for your convenience.
Yeah.
And then 4 bounces back. It's like, well, it's your rigidity that gets you guys killed. And so it goes back and forth.
See that tension. kind of coming in.
And then, of course, you have like some comedic relief happen, and 3 just like ignites the laser and is like laughing his ass off about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, check this out. If you just dig through their guts, you can use a laser.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so finally Thom is like, okay, well, under our code, by default, because he didn't realize they were out of ammo, he's like, by default, I have to give you munitions because you're working with us. So gives him a carbine.
Yeah.
And you see, like, this is the first time that Spartan 4 has held one, because all of a sudden it's like, lightweight, handles nice, like, and then even fires off a shot, like, yeah, this is cool. And Thom even explains, like, shoots this far, also has 18 shots, and then Thom has his sword, and they're good to go. They're gonna go about their merry way.
Yeah, and so that's when we see, once again, is like, hey, we're gonna, you humans take the left, we're gonna take the right. We need to get there. But then this is the breakdown where I think they start to really want to understand each other, because in war, you try and make the enemy barbaric and an animal, and not quote unquote human, regardless if you're Covenant or this. Like, it's your own race, I guess you would say.
Well, 3 or 4 mentions that to them, like, after all this, like, that's why it's easier to kill you, because we don't know a lot about you.
Exactly, because they're like, why do you care so much? And he goes on this little backstory, and it's a little bit of lore, kind of with the Sangheili, that they're kind of born out of these sacks, and
aren't we all?
Aren't we all? And saying that, well, with Ref, he was a weakling who should have just been kind of Spartaned over a hill, just kind of had the baby drop on the baby dead pile.
Yeah.
But he saw something more in him. He saw he has vision. Doesn't really explain what that is. Just kind of goes in and says, like, he would have been purged, so I had to defend him. And I gave him a permanent place by my side.
Yeah, because you see him defending off all these other elites trying to kill him. So I thought that was very interesting. Yeah, we're kind of seeing now, like, we're getting that parallel, like, we're learning about the Spartans coming up, and now the elites coming up, because then, 3 here is just like, yeah, I kind of actually understand that. You know?
Yeah. So, and goes through, and then it takes them back to when they were in Spy Kids 2, and they had to fight in the pinky purple gooey stuff.
I never saw Spy Kids 2.
Well, you know what? That joke hits with everyone else.
I don't think I recovered from Spy Kids 1.
Just imagine Mr. Floop's purple gooey stuff. That's pretty much it. No, they're doing kind of this. What do you call those big batons you fight in the military?
Oh, I don't remember. The Q-tips? I don't know.
Yeah, the big Q-tips. They're fighting the big Q-tips, but they like took it a step further, and they were like on individual logs in this water while Q-tipping it.
Yeah.
And brings back that same story about them making out in the shower.
That one panel reoccurs over and over again. Yeah, and so this is the point to where Spartan 3, I believe, puts out their hand and says... Spartan 4, yeah. So not Spartan 3. Spartan 4 puts out their hand and shakes the elite's hand.
Yeah, and explains kind of that human interaction of, like, this is a gesture born of, look, I have no weapon, you show you have no weapon in these hands, and we bond over kind of that mutual agreement that this is a peace shake and not like a murder, death, stab shake.
Yeah, and like we have respect for each other, proof of what it says, peaceful intent. So really cool to now see that their tensions are slowly dropping. Like, we're starting to see they are working now collectively as a team, but now we're back to Spartan 1. And
the Honeycomb Crew.
Yep, and the Honeycomb.
Spartan 1 and the Honeycomb Crew.
New band name, I called it.
All right.
But yeah, and so this is where they're, Ref is sitting here saying, like, this cannot be how I go, like, to just die in this tube. Like, this is, I am made for more than just this.
Yeah, because he brings back, and it's his recurring theme of kind of the Great Journey. This is not my destiny. Like, and kind of going a little off base thus far of kind of what we know about the Covenant specific religion and how it's all supposed to be in the Great Journey, and kind of in his own way of being that lay priest and saying, this isn't it.
Yeah. And even the, Spartan 1 saying, like, listen, like, they're going to come for us, and even kind of implies, like, maybe, like, we'll team up, and then afterwards we'll go back to killing each other. And, like, saying, like, everything happens for a reason, split shin. It's almost like comforting them, Ref, because Ref's like, do you really think so? Like, kind of like, we're going to get out of this. And all of a sudden the monitor shows back up. And I think like, you think, I'm not going to, like, the Spartan's like, I'm not going to reason with you. Like, or no, I'm not going to beg. Like, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out. But then Ref actually comes and says, no, actually, please don't kill the Spartan. Like, this, she
doesn't believe. So it's trying to say, like, the great journey, like, she doesn't believe. Why does she get to go on the great journey type thing? Like, she's not a believer of it. And I like that the Oracle is, like, most fascinating. Like, you rudimentarily understand what's happening, like with the quote unquote great journey. But we'll talk about that later. And so unfortunately, rest in peace, Jubub.
Jubub is now zapped. Iana! Or what is this? And this gruesome shot afterwards of just basically blue guts in that rib cage.
Yeah.
And we see that, after we see this gory little scene, all of a sudden the monitor's like, uh-oh. There are people in here who should not be. I need to go out of here and take care of this. So now, like, Ref is like, I earned you a reprieve, Spartan. So now they're saying, like, we're, you owe me one. Like, we're Gucci.
Yeah, and it goes back a little bit to that religious aspect of, like, okay, now I saved you. What is my reason that you know why I'm here? And the Spartan's like, oh, in our language, that's just kind of a thing you say. It doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah. More tentacle monsters coming out.
But then this is where Spartan 1's like, but those unauthorized presences, quote unquote, my Spartans, they have to be. And then, it shows up there like, oh, my spare AR mag is wedged, which I get why you have to kind of put that in the panel. But it's one of those like, hey, audience, look exactly what I want you to look at and exactly what it is and look at what's going to happen. So that's the only issue I have with this is it's just a little too on the nose of like over explaining it.
Well, you know what? You rewrite the comic better, Alex. You rewrite the comic
You know
better.
what? I'm going to do that as such a great comic writer, and I'm just going to redraw it too. And honestly color it and probably even just ship it.
You'll probably do that before I translate the language.
Well, probably. No, but you see that the AR mag is wedged where it was before whenever one got caught. So it's the same ink tank rhubarb pie monster that was captured her.
Yeah, now we're back to Spartan 3 and 4, and I think it's to the point where it's like 3 is like almost trying to get 4 to get their helmet off.
Get riled up because 3 is kind of saying, hey, can you please take your helmet off real quick? I think you have a lisp. I think you're developing a split chin right now.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like poking fun and trying to be like, look at you, like fraternizing with the enemy, like you are one now kind of thing.
Yeah. And I've noticed that a lot of the Spartans call each other brother and sister a lot, which is odd to me, but it's just part of it.
Well, especially for this issue, it's very akin, get it, to the elites. Because the elites are calling each other brothers, and that's kind of brothers in arms. So it goes back to that kind of whole idea.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of my favorite panels because it harkens back to kind of like that inner monologue in your brain, like when you want something bad to happen to someone. So 3 starts digging into 4 and gives him this long lecture. He's like, you know what's wrong with you, 4? And 4's like, I really don't want to listen. He's like, listen, I know you're a sniper. I know you're supposed to be grace under fire, but you're practically comatose. You're you're so boring and this and that. And then we just see a panel where 4 has now turned that carbine and blown off 3's head. And then right after that's another panel of 3 just continuing to talk. So it's kind of like inner, like, I'm just going to kill you right now.
Yeah.
I just want this to stop.
Like, please shut up for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But then we see all of a sudden that 3 gets hit by the Covenant beam rifle, sniper rifle, out all of a sudden. Kind of like this, just one giant panel. And we see that golden Thom out in the distance that just took a shot at it.
Yeah, kind of like that, like, I shook your hand, like you said we'd respect, but obviously this was a ruse the entire time.
Yeah, so now we see the betrayal. And to me, when I read this, I was like, better late than never. Like, I knew this was going to happen. But
yeah, you knew, like it was boiling over at some point, one side was going to go.
Yeah, and so that's the point where it's like, go. 3 says to 4, kill him twice for me. And that's when 4 makes her way up to that elite. And eventually does take the elite out.
Yeah, because this gets us back to the panel. Like, it's a huge cavern that they jump over for this. And so 4 nymphs their way over, gets choomed, at, and kind of says like no sightlines.
Yeah, learning that carbine, like, oh, I can't aim with this thing necessarily.
Yeah, and trying to figure it out, and then eventually lines it up, sees a shot, and pulls a trigger.
Die.
Yeah, and blows
The Thom's head off.
Yeah, it just goes through. It's super gruesome. Eye punctured through, purple blood everywhere, jaws open.
Yeah, like
super gruesome.
that helmet blowing off of its head. But then all of a sudden we see the Covenant find 3. And we see Thom standing there.
And they're very casual because Thom starts off and says, found time for that nap, Spartan.
Yeah, and all of a sudden we're just like, wait, what's going on here? Like, you see, the grunt calls him lazy face.
Yeah.
By the way, one of my favorite renditions of the grunts in this comic. I love the grunts in this comic. They're the comedic relief that you need in this comic, hands down.
Oh yeah, and it shows kind of like their just mentality of kind of like, lazy, not lazy, but just kind of like
Goofballs.
Yeah, goofballs, laissez-faire, kind of like, I'm just here because I have to be here. And he's like found a friend almost. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, I found a new guy. Come on, let's get up. Let's go do this thing.
All of a sudden, 3, says like, the grunt's coming over like, all right, come on, get up to help him up. And then that's when 3 says Covenant bastard and blows him up. So now instantly the Covenant are like, whoa, what's going on here? What's going on here? And we see now a firefight ensue between Spartan 3 and the rest of the Covenant there.
Yeah, because that's when Thon's like, oh, you do have no honor, you like scum of human, and draws his energy sword on him. And then at that point, we see that 3 has now traded out the Sentinel laser for the Needler.
Yeah, and so this is when Thom says, I suffer your existence no more. Not suffering a fool ever again. But then all of a sudden, we see that Spartan 4 goes up to that elite they just killed, and all of a sudden it's Spartan 2, or Spartan Black 2, who just had their head shot off and they're dead.
Yeah, you see like this smoke rising out of the wound and
Gory panel.
super gory. The visor is kind of split and broken. There's blood everywhere. It almost looks, the body just looks decrepit.
Yeah, it's almost like what I think of it is like if you've ever seen early episodes of Family Guy, when a character falls over, their body goes contorted. And I don't know why they do that, but that's exactly what it is. But now all of a sudden we see that Iona is in her own little headspace and she's looking at this whole scene going down like, what is going on here? Spartan 2's dead. And then all of a sudden we hear a voice say, most fascinating. And we see the child anime version of Iona and we realize like, the monitor has hacked Iona's system and is now in all of Spartan Black's heads.
And kind of like, if you can kind of infer, it's kind of like, what?
But that's the end of the 3rd issue, which now you're kind of like trying to figure out like, what the hell's going on? I think to me, this is the best cliffhanger that we got. Like all of a sudden it's like Spartan 2 Black is dead, and now that this monitor is in the system, what's going on? Tune in next week.
Well, especially because up to this point, in lore and what we're reading, this is the first we've gotten Black. They've obviously gone through the Yanmei thing because they made that reference to it. So it's kind of like, oh, is this where they just kill each other? Like, this is nuts.
Yeah. So then we have issue 4 where we see Spartan Black, a team member, it's 3 we figure out, but blocking an energy sword, getting ready to get stabbed in the face. So instantly you're like, huh. So now we get a new kind of update and we see blue text.
Yeah, so immediately at the top, under incoming data files, is quarantined, malicious code detected, and it's from Iona, but then under says urgent, disregard any communiques from this AI unit, repeat, this unit is not secure. Transmission to and from. And yeah, then you're right. Then we get over to blue text, which brings us back to our
monitor.
Monitor.
Yeah, and so, he's now going through and kind of realizing, like, learning everything about, what this elite is and its ref, and this is, Spartan 1. So we're learning kind of everything. And it's like, I'm going to be able to take care of this all pretty quickly. So I found that really interesting now that we've had these kind of pre-issue reports from 3 different people now. Well, 1 person and 2 AIs. Really interesting. I like how they did that.
I think it's so well done with this, because then you see like malicious code successfully quarantined, delete all. So it's kind of like these messages that came in through Oni were kind of segmented for here. And you're right, like having 3 points of views from a professional Oni captain or commander, right one, this kind of not loose cannon AI, but writes it very loose in her own personality. And now we're having a monitor write it, similar to like we've seen with like Guilty Spark talking and going through those things and kind of going through that phase of it, which is really, really cool.
So this issue starts with this narration from Iona, but we see that Spartan 4 is now missing an eye. And we see that Mendez is trying to say, who did this to you? Who did this to you? Spartan 4 won't say anything. Black 4 won't say anything. And we can see, he's telling all of these Spartan recruits, like, listen, that eye doesn't belong to you. It belongs to me. Like, which is just like, ooh, you get that chill. You're just like, oh, God.
Yeah, like you damaged property of the UNSC.
Yeah, like, and like, basically like you made this person's life miserable, and that's my job. I love that. But basically, says like, listen, whoever did this needs to come up. And he says, Red Team, I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
Like, so she kind of knows and basically says, like, until one of you fess up, you don't get to eat. You don't get to eat. This is fasting time. Because, Spartan 4, Black 4 won't fess up. Like, so, keep silent, which it's kind of like tragic. Like, oh, God. Like,
and it's super interesting because the one tiny little iota that we get so far from the iota from Iona is it just says all families have secrets.
Yeah, and you're like,
okay.
Which I'm surprised that Spartan 4 was kept in there, because if there's anything I learned from the sci-fi movie Soldier with Kurt Russell, having one eye isn't a good thing. You lose your depth perception.
Unless you're Deadshot.
Good point. Wait, I thought Deadshot had that thing to...
Exactly. Get a robot eye to help you out.
Well, we learn later it's not a robot eye, okay?
Anyway, yeah, so then as we get to the next page, we get another thing from Iona that says, most secrets families keep from outsiders. And then we're at the table, and Black 2, right?
Yeah, that's 2.
That's 2? Yeah. Black, sorry. Oh, they do have their insignia on their sleeve. There you go. Yeah. So if you don't know and you're dumb like me and don't pay attention to that, Black 2 is kind of whispering like, it was Red Team, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That we smoked in the last exercise, so they had to get back, right? And they were the one who got you in the brig in the first place. They're the one who caught you and won. And you see in the panel, and then it's 4 staring at 3 and saying, from 2 says, don't worry, 4, we'll get them. And 4 comes in and says, that we will, 2, as like that kind of stare off one day.
Yep.
And then we get back to the text from Iona that says, some they keep from each other, but the most important, they keep from themselves.
Yeah, so now we're back at that panel where Spartan 4 has shot Spartan 2 in the face, and it even, like, we show this parallel, like, you see the dead Spartan, but you also see the dead child there, and it's so gruesome, but I think it's done so well, and you see Spartan 4 just freaking out, like, having this panic attack of just like, how is it possible? How did I do this? Like, I couldn't tell. Like, I'd never hurt you, and you it's believable even reading this.
Could you imagine having to do this in a game?
Yeah,
where like you're with your team. Like, let's say you're like 3 hours in. Like, you've been with this team. It's been fun. You're like, oh no, like 3's down. Shoot that sniper up there. And you actually killed like the comrade you've had the entire time.
Doesn't that kind of happen in Black Ops 2? Isn't that one of the things? And then like he could have survived or he didn't, depending on your ending. I never played Black Ops 2, so thanks Actman for that insight.
Pretty much stuff like that, or like any like betrayal things is pretty crazy. It's just really nuts.
Yeah, but yeah, that would suck. So yeah, seeing this, like, they're freaking out about it, and then this is now where we're going back to Iona. And it's terrified of this little kid anime character of herself. And I love these eyes of this little kid version are evil. So you see that, for the most part, the Forerunners are neutral with humans and their constructs all up until now. This is a different breed of Forerunner where, is basically saying like, I'm gonna take you all out and intimidating her. I think and we're in this little headspace. And if you notice now, all these symbols have turned into those symbols from the very beginning.
The warnings.
The warnings, like basically saying like, you screwed up now. Mm-hmm. You're in trouble.
Yeah, and showing this off, and basically, because I love the text that the Oracle brings in, and it's kind of saying, you are masters of the most fragile race through Iona. Like, you're ridiculous. All I have to do is study these things. Their combat skills, like, it's just awful. Mm-hmm. And they have to wear these suits. And so then that's when your Oracle goes through and is like, you know what? I wish him to see what I want him to see.
Yeah, so we're starting to learn that, this monitor is abstracting their vision to make them see, which first time I think we've ever dealt with that. It's the first time we've dealt with that, where it's like their vision, we can alter it to see whatever, if you're wearing a visor, like, whatever we want them to see.
Yeah, because in the games, the only people who've been able to do that have been Cortana, a human-made AI, and the Gravemind.
Yeah,
but going through Cortana.
Yeah, so and even then, that wasn't really abstracting what was true.
Yeah,
it was just layering.
Yeah, it was just making the game worse by making me walk really slow. So this is the first time we're seeing it, because not only did that happen to 4, we then get this rundown where the monitor is going through and kind of giving this pitch. Like, I can kind of make them see whatever they want to see. I brought 2 here as well. Mm-hmm. I was the one who kind of forced 2 here, and I had 2 see 3 as a hunter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so now all of a sudden everyone's fighting everyone, and it's all this weird mix of now you have to really pay attention and go, okay, who is who? Mm-hmm. Because now we don't know at this point, and now we see Thom is now once again fighting with Spartan 3.
Yeah,
Spartan Black 3.
We resume where we were before, and the same with the cover. We now see that Thon is yelling "die" and has pretty much cut and destroyed that Needler.
Needler, yeah,
and is possibly going to be the death of 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then we now see this almost like we're now going back to showing this scene of 3 as a recruit, as they were, a redheaded recruit, as 4 is looking down at this situation going on.
Yeah, and this is where the monitor, going through and kind of using Iona as this change and changing his vision, is showing Thon, 3, and the rest of them as Kid 3, and kind of portraying the hatred onto it, almost like saying, like, this is what you want to do. You want to kill them.
Yeah, that weird manipulation, angel and devil on your shoulder, except for it's just 2 devils on your shoulder.
It's just anime devil and then really quiet angel that can't say anything right now.
Yeah, basically.
Yep.
And yeah, so we see that 4 does start taking out, takes out those 2 grunts, rest in peace, shoots 3, and then tries to shoot one of the hunters, but throws up that shield and deflects all that because hunters ain't got time for that today. Hunters aren't being messed with. It's just you dummies. And so we see, like, the hunter, the Spartan, and Thon all get out of there as it's firing towards them. And now we start to learn, like, both Thon and Spartan 3 are communicating, like, wait, they're firing at it. He's firing at both of us.
Yeah, because 3 starts off like, haha, your own sniper turned against you. And Thon's like, what do you mean? That is your sniper. And so they're kind of like, no, that's not what we saw.
Yeah, and so now they kind of realize, like, they didn't actually break their truce.
Yeah, and I love that 3 was kind of like, come to think of it, it was 4 that said you were shooting at us. And then as a shot comes by, he goes, ooh, my bad, Thon. And they're like, ooh, sorry about that.
I love that as serious the situation are, these Spartans are casual. We're getting more of those Spartans with personalities.
Especially 3, because we see at the beginning, 3 has always been that kind of jokester.
Yep.
Like, even when they come out of cryo, it's like Spartan 3 checking in, ready to kick some Covenant butt, pretty much.
Yeah, and so then all of a sudden, 4 is jumping down now. Like, 4 is like on a rampage mode, essentially, just like going crazy, like, I'm going to get these guys. I'm going to take them out just as promised. And then we switch back to Iona. And she's being chased around by a little anime counterpart here. And we see her in this, like, UNSC hall almost. And she's running away. And would you say this is more like a different projection of an area? almost, because we see them barge in later. It's like almost like they're in a memory, right?
Well, what they're doing is she's running through her operating system.
Okay, yeah.
So this is where she's kind of like going to the ends of her lengths within her chip and trying to like run through and snake around. And the construct of it is pretty much like a UNSC ship hallway almost. And
doing that Michael Myers walk.
yeah, I was trying to compare it to like some like Cartoon Network tiny villain that just kind of goes through.
Mojo Jojo.
Pretty much. So we got some Mojo Jojo action going, and we see the panels like fly off the wall with some clackety clacks, and there's just hundreds of different UNSC weapons that kind of like. So the monitor has now magnetoed all these weapons behind her and opens fire onto Iona, and Iona does like some sweet Matrix moves all around. As
This is pretty cool.
as she's getting does. And
Buddha, 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 Buddha.
yeah, she's getting Buddha, 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 Buddha rocking everywhere, as we can see. And so she comes to like this really cool like ninja stance, and we see that whether the door is opened or has been shot through, we open up to that mess hall to where 4 had made that promise to 2, like, oh, we'll get that, bastard someday type thing.
Yeah.
And they both pause.
Yeah, even the little anime monitor is like most fascinating.
Yeah, because they're like, what is
What's
this?
going on here?
And I believe what we're inferring with it is now they're accessing the actual mind of Spartan 4.
Yeah, which it's interesting to I don't think if we're talking about it, like they can do feelings, but like memories and whatnot. Like that's a new one. This one really kind of pushes the envelope. This comic does with what we know.
Because it's interesting because with Cortana and Chief's binding, like even Cortana doesn't get that. And they've been together for years. And with this has been what? Let's say 2 hours, 3 hours maybe since initial everything.
Yeah. So then, it goes back to the monitor who's now hovering over
Our honeycomb crew,
Spartan 1 and Ref. So basically this is the point to where Spartan 1 says, I would like to volunteer next.
Yeah. Can you please kill me? I'm tired of listening to you talk to yourself, because I think everything that the monitor was saying to Iona, as far as we can believe here, was just being said out loud.
Yeah, so they're probably like, this is weird and annoying.
Yeah.
I am just a fly on the wall listening to your phone call, kind of. I don't know what's going on.
And I love that the oracles are never programmed and never understood sarcasm or kind of dark humor. Because, after Spartan 1 says this, the oracle's like, oh, most certainly. I am glad one of you truly appreciates adherence to this protocol. I'm about the rules. Thank you for following the rules. Here's a lollipop. All right, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, that was a panel cutout, but
Yeah, sorry, that along with the Area 51 run.
Yeah,
out.
and so Ref is like, you would sacrifice yourself for me? Like, I will remember this moment for beyond the reaches of the great journey. And Spartan 1's like, sure, Ref.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Shut the hell up. I got something to do. So at that point, then it's we jump back again. So we're with Spartan 3 and Thon trying to figure out what's going on, but we're also seeing Iona going through these pseudo memories, kind of figuring everything out.
There's like a ghostly shimmer. It's almost like you did a double exposure, and there's two different memories overlapping each other.
Yeah, kind of. One is transparent and one is solid. So we're kind of trying to see like what's going on, and Iona's starting to. She's in 4's personal log. That's what we figured out. So we're in the mind of 4, who's on the rampage mode right now already. And this is where we start to get a little bit more insight to what's going on, because Iona and the monitor are actually now almost like walking through together.
Yeah,
through.
because I think especially for the monitor, because all of these Forerunner monitors crave knowledge and crave this. So it's going through and like passing its little anime hand through all these like ghostly things, and it's like, this is amazing, because they also learn that Iona's like, hey, I've got distracted. We're going through this memory. It looks like 4 is still pissed off at you for ratting him out. And 3 is like, whoa. That's actually what they say too. What has he been telling you? And, she says, nothing. I have access to his memory. I've seen it. And that's when 3 says, I I didn't rat out 4. 4 ratted me out. One and I, 3, had a relationship.
Yeah.
4 got jealous, and 4 ratted us out.
Yeah, so now we're starting to see, it was actually 4 that did it, and it was actually 1 that was in that bunker, and 1 lost her eye because of that whole ordeal with Spartan sneaking in and beating the hell out of her.
Yeah, and it looks like kind of the psychosis broke in 4.
Yeah.
And he's the one who wanted that relationship, and he couldn't deal with the guilt of having 1 lose her eye because of him.
Yeah, so his memories changed, which is a very real thing that
It's
happens.
a very human thing, yeah.
Yeah, it happens to people who experience this kind of trauma. So then we see at this point, 1, it goes back to her. She takes off her helmet, and we see her eye now, the technology, it's smaller. It's not almost like a patch. It just looks like she has a glass eye almost.
It's her Deadshot eye.
I mean, you could probably actually, by all means. Alex just gave a very satisfying hands up kind of
Deadshot
like.
eye.
Okay. This is where we kind of learn almost the strength of the visor on these helmets, which
is interesting because in the panel before, when 1 was like, let's just get this over with, we see that same panel again of the AR mag stuck in the rhubarb pie monster.
she takes off the helmet and is like, all right, let's do this. And we see the next panel, all these lasers come to hit 1, but she reflects one of them with the visor helmet. And it goes and it hits that AR mag. That AR mag now kills our squid Doc Ock love child, and then that thing explodes. And so all of a sudden now we see that the honeycombs surrounding them are destroyed.
Yeah, because it starts to shatter that glass they were kind of kept in.
Which to me, my only issue with this, it's like those lasers were still going through Spartan 1, so it's like Hollywood magic here, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of move on. Maybe the lasers have to be pinpointed on the body for 5 or 10 seconds.
Or it could be a thing where
The Mjolnir armor.
exactly is shielded.
Yeah.
But even so, it's like, but these, either way, if you want to believe that they're shielded and the shields are able to maintain it long enough for the beam to hit 1's visor, shoot rhubarb pie, and break the honeycombs.
Which, is exactly what happens here. And then, now the monitor, and we're seeing both anime AI and the regular monitor both saying at the same time, like, this is the most unfortunate development. And so now Spartan 1 has that big gun that has come off of a rhubarb pipe snail thing and then releases Ref.
Yeah.
So now, like, it says duck and releases them and helps Ref up. And so now the monitor's freaking out, and Spartan 1 is blasting the monitor, which doesn't seem like it's doing much.
No, I do like the one-liner of the monitors, like, this is beyond protocol. You need to get back in there. This is ridiculous. And then I love that it gives you the one-liner of protocol this. And just
It's always insert something this. Like,
Yes.
you're dumb this. So yeah, then we see that the anime Iona disappears.
Yep.
So now, like, she's trying to process everything. Wait, the 3-4 ratted you out?
Yeah,
Like,
she's processing memory data, I guess you would say. It's like,
Yeah.
I already had this data cataloged. This is who this guy is. This is what happened. He doesn't have an eye, which you would think she would notice if she was kind of in his head and going through stuff.
Deadshot eye.
He doesn't, but 1 has a Deadshot eye. So it's kind of her like almost like rebooting. Like,
yeah.
I need to figure this out.
She's like, all right, I'm gonna hit my power button real quick. Just shut up and leave me alone. But yeah, so then that's when we're starting to figure this thing out, and then we see 4 crawl up, with a carbine and that beam rifle, and he's like, "Yep, he's our shooter." 3 is saying that, realizing what's going on. So now this is where it's like, okay, Thawne is like, let's take him out, but 3 is like, no, let me try to handle this first. Like, we need to realize this. And then, Thawne's like, why? And he's like, because he's my brother. And then it flashes back here to this panel.
You get that
of
Thawne flashback.
when Thawne was protecting Ref, so he understands. And the word parallel, this should just be called Halo Parallel, because and I'm saying they're done so well. Though.
It's done so well, and it's showcasing once again the similarities between elites and especially Spartans, and just who they are. And it does it really well, because then we see that as they're going to try and get their battle on, like, I need to detain him, we then jump back to Ref and One, who are running away from the Monitor.
Yep.
And the Monitor is, keeps basically saying, like, dissection that I'm going to do is not the best choice, but you leave me no choice to do this.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to hurt. I gave you the path of least resistance. You're kind of pissed on that. So now I got to do this and blaming them. And so now we're seeing, this battle ensuing between Ref, Spartan 1, and some more Sentinels, but easily getting taken out by the big old gun. But unfortunately, Spartan 1 is hit by the Monitor. And this is at the point where Ref calls it a false oracle and takes out its eye.
Yeah, because he picks up one of the fallen Monitor lasers and shoots him right in the eye. And
it's almost like tries to. He's like, do you mean to blind me?
Yeah, and it's like, did you mean to do that? 'Cause it's that once again of like that weird kind of robotic persona, like, okay, you shot me in the eye. Did you mean to do that? Because I am the Oracle and I am the Monitor of this installation and I see all. And so it actually does help them. It's blinded long enough to where they are able to kind of slip out and go into what we see as this huge atrium with this giant central tower and a kind of lasery command port, very similar to where we kind of saw like the Index and a couple other things within the Halo universe.
And to be continued. And that's when we move on to the final issue of Halo Bloodline. And we see the issue is of what we learn is 3 and 4 in a fist fight in this cavern.
Over a big old crevasse.
Yeah. So now we have, our final little data report. And this is back from Iona. Basically filling us in as if we were to pick this up and we hadn't read it before.
Well, and then the one big thing with this from Iona is that it's a program protocol. So it's not just a relay message. It said only to be opened and relayed to UNSC headquarters if Team Spartan Black is neutralized.
Yeah, so this is kind of like a just in case message.
Yeah, and
just in case.
And it's interesting because we're reading this now. And I love it because it starts off with, I don't mean to be overdramatic here with the, quote, only to be open in the event of our deaths routine, but I want it to be here just in case.
Just in case, because, it might happen. It might happen. So, yeah, now we finally see, it starts with 3 calling 4 by his name, Victor, saying, like, we're friends here. Like, we're not trying to hurt you. But then now it goes back to seeing, it shows them as their kid self on Reach and how we see that 4 has this hatred almost towards 3.
Yeah, because it even shows that Iona's going on in her panels saying, Ebullient Prime didn't need to actively manipulate Black 4 anymore. Like, the Monitor broke through and just emerged this mass amount of pain that 4 was still harboring for 3. Pretty much saying, everything is my fault that happened to 1, but you 3 are the reason all this happened all together. And kind of like trying to externalize that hate. And even Iona tries to jump in. She actually jumps into the visor, very kind of Cortana Gravemind-esque, and like blurs vision, is like having them look right at her. And it's like, Victor, I know you. I know you're a good man. You can't do this, but he still fires.
Yeah, so he's saying, get out of my head, throws the chip down and goes to stomp on it, but luckily 3 stops him from stomping on that chip, which I thought that was going to be the death of her. I was like, ooh.
It's pretty crazy that, like, that fragile of it. I thought, like, maybe it was going to be, like, her pieces were in the other helmets and she'd be reestablished somewhere, but I think that was a really good idea with that.
Yeah, so we see Thawne and the Grunt are kind of watching it, and at one point, like, the Grunt's like, kill now, first boss, but then that Grunt gets backhanded by Thawne and, quickly has to put his mask back on.
Off.
So, just basically saying, like, you have less honor than the humans themselves. Like, basically saying, like, just let them be.
This is between them. This is a warrior versus a warrior.
Yeah, for whatever reasons they have. They're brothers. They have their reasons. Let them go. So, yeah, and then all of a sudden, Ref gets a hold of Thawne and is saying, like, listen, I've got a Spartan. We've managed to escape, and we've found something.
And this is, once again, where Ref, even though he's going through all of this stuff, he goes, this is the nerve center of it. This is what has been foretold. We have found a vast and holy artifact.
We are gonna transcend. We are gonna transcend.
Exactly. And that's when, Thon, who once again is not really the biggest believer in all this, he's kind of like, just leave all the religious stuff to the prophets. We just handle what we have to do. He says, okay, I'm on my way. I'll be there. And at that same time, one is sending a message. So they both kind of send the exact same message and say, hey, we're here. I'm with so-and-so. Come help. But at the same time, where Thon is like, all right, I'll be there. I got my crew. We're going to roll in. 3 and 4 kind of like, hey, we're busy right now. We're kind of going through this little fight. And the one big thing that one relays over is, like, if I'm reading this correctly, there's an entire enemy fleet that's in system. And we need to get out of here as soon as possible.
Yeah, they're coming for us. We need to get out of here. But, we are now still in the midst of 3 and 4 fighting. And you can't tell in this scene, but one has overcome the other, and they have that beam rifle on their neck. It's again kind of like those memories being shifted around, and one of them saying it's about on Reach, you losing your eye, and these again these contorted memories that really kind of messes with the actual narrative itself.
Yeah, and it's because we go back, because obviously 1 and 3 know the story, and I think everyone just didn't talk about it, but Iona's the one who brought it back up, kind of seeing what's inside their head. And it gives us that quick recap of the story we've already been seeing this entire time. And I love that this is such a cinematic trope that happens where we've been piecemealed with everything that's happened, and then we get that replay one more time, but all together. And it goes back to 4, Rat, and 1 and 3, and 1 and 3 actually both got prisoned, but only 1 got attacked. 1 loses their eye. Mendez, does the questioning. Rat, who it was, she won't. And it occurs to her, because we're getting this this kind of backplate from Iona, that it all came back to her instantly because it never left. And this is the first time it ever occurred to her to do this. Because in her mind, she already did it all. But it's to say, Victor, my brother, I forgive you. And it's something that was, I guess, never verbally exchanged. It was probably like, we're family, don't worry about it, just don't talk about it type thing. But now that cloud is lifted, we then see both 3 and 4 revert back to kids.
And Victor's crying. 4 is...
Yeah, and 4 just has tears streaming down. And, we see that, as 4 is kind of like, I think it all sinks in for 4. Like the memory that he artificially created, the memory that was, with her forgiving, has just shattered that one and brought everything back. And as he pauses, 3 does some quick jump work and inserts Iona back into 4.
Yeah, and then we get this panel of what happened in Blunt Instruments on the previous episode we just did for Halo Evolutions, and it's almost like this surge of memories coming back in, and we see that everything they've gone through.
It's so good. It's such a well done thing, because you see whenever a character gets that mind meld of just too much info, he's holding his head, and it's just so many amazingly well done panels that gives you the highlights of that story.
Yeah, it's basically just don't read the story. Just look at this giant panel and you'll see everything that happened.
Yeah, and it's great because then it ends going through all this, and it ends with a little tidbit from Iona that says they're family, and it brings them back that they are family, and they had these battles and they had all these troubles, and
they got their revenge on Red Team. They took those batons and beat the holy hell out of them, which they then said they spent, 10 days in the brig for it. But it shows that, they're still together. So I love that, they got their revenge. They hospitalized them more than likely. And then, now... I'm
going to put this in the record. Jesse loves child abuse.
What? No!
He loves children-on-children violence.
I mean, they could have been Spartans at this point.
Doesn't matter. He loves children-on-children violence. No, so it is great because 4 kind of recalls back and says that was the moment he's never felt better. That was the best moment of his life, was when the family came together.
Yeah, and so now it's okay, are we all good? We all good, guys? We all good? We're all family. And then this hunter comes in and is like, I don't care about this lame sissy stuff, and puts his fist right through Spartan 1's head and slams it into this console. And immediately now, like, Ref's like, whoa, what's going on? This female Spartan saved me. And Thawne's like, no. Like, we're done here. Like, we did what we had to do. Alliance is over. We're reunited. Let's figure this out now. And so this is now we see this other kind of conflict going on with Thawne says, cool, tight. We have this fleet coming on and we're good to go. But Ref has kind of a different kind of action he wants to take. He's now saying, like, he's kind of almost like he's like making himself as a prophet, correct? He's like, I'm going to build a new covenant here.
Yeah, he said he needs to use this device, which is we come to learn that big laser that shot all those ships out of the sky. He's like, I need to use this to blow the slaves of the false prophets out of the sky. So he's basically saying that the prophets that they're following are false idols and that everyone else is just a slave to that religion. So he's going to start anew. And obviously Thawne's like, okay, you've gone way too far. Like, this is no time for heresy or treachery. Like, we need to get out of here. But Ref is saying, I'm here to start the new covenant.
Yep. And he's like, he's like bowing down, and clearly he's not worshiping Franck. This isn't going to work out for him, but sucks to suck. But yeah, so he's making his new covenant, and he's like, I will now be the one true prophet, and I'm going to start my own great journey here now. And then all of a sudden, this is Thawne's like, all right, you know what? I stuck my neck out for you long enough. That's it. I'm done with this. You're gone. And goes to pull out his sword, and then he's like, where's my sword? And then next thing you know, Thawne is no more. Ref put the sword through his brother's belly. He says, you have condescending me for the last time, brother, which a beautiful shot. Love this shot. And definitely just, he falls down, and you see that Spartan 1 is starting to finally like wake up. And so you see the one remaining grunt and hunter kind of like look at each other with like a question mark, like, what do we do here? Yeah, because the great thing that we're seeing, and you see this divide eventually, is you have Ref that's saying, listen, you two, you will bear witness to my ascendance. Not only for us, but humans will be included as well. Yeah, good guy, Ref.
Yeah, good guy, Ref.
Good guy, Ref.
And it's, saying this about the great journey, but then we see the Monitor along with the Sentinels and the Rhubarb Pie Monsters. Figure out a name for us. They're going to be Rhubarb Pie Monsters forever.
I don't think they have an official name that I know of. Like, maybe we could look this up. But yeah, it's Rhubarb Pie Monsters.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they are. They're basically saying, step away from that console at once. Protocol contains that you are not allowed to use it. And then this is where Ref unfortunately gives his last rousing speech. And, he's, do not sully this moment with your yattering, and kind of gives his whole confidence boost that says, I alone, who shall unite all races, covenant and human, on the path to the great journey. And the Oracle says, you know what? I'll let you do that. Sure. Go for it, pal. And then Fazashes him. He is no more. All that's left are his legs. And so that's all of a sudden when we see 3 and 4 barge in and start firing. And they say, Black One, stay down. And we see this giant firefight ensue with the remaining Hunter, Grunt, and Spartan 3 and 4. Well, the Grunt's getting sucked up right here, so never mind. The poor Grunt's getting cut in half. He's getting ripped apart. I saw that earlier. I was like, rest in peace, No Name. And I love this panel too, because you're seeing that, like, with the Hunters, once again, we learn that their loyalty is 1 of survival and 2 just of situation.
Yeah.
So they're fighting against the machines. You've got 3 and 4 with the carbine and the beam rifle, and then you've got 1 has now picked up one of the laser cannons from the Rhubarb monsters, and it's just going to town, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and again, this is, well, the Monitor takes out that Hunter pretty instantly, so it's like, so it's we then see the Oracle trying to say, like, listen, guess what, you guys are dead, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I love this, like, doing housekeeping as well. It's like, listen, you guys have made it so hard to run this facility. It's going to take me so long to clean it up. And it's just like doing what Monitors do.
But then we see Spartan 2 emerge. And that's all of a sudden when it's like a good old family reunion. You'll say, miss me? And then this is where the monitor says, another? Fascinating. And then we see this panel of all four
the Power
of them.
Rangers.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to bring up is that each one of them has a different color coming from their weapon. So they're all going to town and, everyone says, direct, or, Spartan 1 says, direct your fire at them now. Let's do this.
I'm so glad the Red Ranger, Blue Ranger, Pink Ranger, and Green Ranger could come together.
I was thinking more of the different members of the Green Lantern Corps.
That's lame. Green Lantern's lame. You know what's better?
Whoa!
Power Rangers.
No. Different debate. Maybe we'll yell at each other on post show. But yeah, so we do get this cool shot of they're all back together finally since the beginning of the comic, working together. You see like the monitor is finally getting taken out and saying, oh, most unacceptable, and kind of like running away like, screw this, I'll go clean up my installation later. But yeah, so this is then where Spartan 1 activates this machine that they've all been around and says fire. And all of a sudden, this does not bode well for that upcoming Covenant fleet.
Or the Oracle itself.
Yeah, the Oracle itself, because now that fleet that just showed up that was going to help out their buddies down there gets taken out, all of them. And so, you see this panel of just this giant, just graveyard of ships. And so now we realize that they have to get out of there now. And
yeah, they've done their thing. They're going, and we see Iona say, Black One, I'm scanning the wreckage. It looks like there's a functional slip drive that we can use. And they're like, oh, sounds like a plan. Get ready for the show, people. And then we get the little camaraderie between 2 and 4, and it's like, how's the skull cap? And they're like, Biofoam fixed it. And, lucky you're a crappy shot. And they realized that the Oracle had projected so much more gruesomeness to the injury that really it was just like a glancing blow that probably knocked 2 out.
Yeah.
And then we get back to Iona, who says, whoa. Once again, you humans have pretty much rushed into conclusion of what I'm saying. I'm not finished yet.
You big dumb idiots.
Yeah. Hundreds of hostiles have lived through this. We need to be careful about this. And then that's when 3 says, 100? That's almost a fair fight.
Yep.
And I love that Iona's kind of going back, like, Crunch there was like, yeah, I know, shouldn't we wait to see who expires from asphyxiation or from their wounds? And that's when we get to 1 who says, what? No. He means almost a fair fight for them. And then it opens on such another cool panel, like sun rising over this force of banshees, elites, grunts, and just like, and Wraith tanks kind of coming in. It's a really cool panel.
Yeah, and then she ends it with there's this panel of them all emerging from the door, firing weapons. One has a sword, and she says, like I said, this is a story of family, what became my family, and how together, united, we discovered we were always home. Aw. So this whole thing was almost like how she became part of the family. How the dysfunctional family. But that was it. That was Bloodline. And man, we'll talk about our general reaction here soon, because I really want to talk about this comic, but we have a few more things to talk about at first. Let's talk about publication history. So of course we know 5 parts. Issue 1 was released December 23rd, 2009. Issue 2, January 27th, 2010. Issue 3, February 24th, 2010. Issue 4, March 24th, 2010. And Issue 5 was released April 28th, 2010. Now, we have a few release versions. You can buy the individual issues. It's 2019. That's more work than it needs to be. You can buy the hardback cover, or you can buy the Halo Oversized Collection, which is a collection of Halo graphic novels released through Marvel Comics containing Uprising, Bloodline, and Helljumper.
Which I highly recommend, because that's how we read it. Is just be able to go through that and see the issues, and because obviously it helps than just having to buy trades, because it's like you can't find them easily.
Yeah, hell no. But yeah, so then, let's talk about, just real quick, what does this do for the lore? So one big things we learn about Spartan Black, really. We get this insight into some more of the training that went on in Reach, for sure, no romance. But another thing that's big to me is how monitors can affect what they see.
Yes.
Fascinating.
I think for the most part, that is one of the biggest things that's, for me, like obviously the bonding of the Covenant with the humans, especially, a Sangheili with a Spartan, is kind of the first we see that's not totally forced, but I think that is isolated. As far as the Monitor or even just Forerunner being able to project and fully change a view, that's new and unseen.
Yeah, and I don't quote me on this if we ever see that in the future, not that I'm familiar with, but it was very fascinating. And something I also want to bring up is this very new art style to the Forerunners. Granted, you can just say it's artistic interpretation, but really interesting to see that. Interesting to see how they almost have the rhubarb pie tentacle monsters coming out. Like, we've never seen that before.
And never been prompted for it. And what I love is that you can expand on that lore, because this was a research installation specifically to dissect bio stuff.
Technical term.
Bio stuff, the old bio stuff, to see if it could resist the flood.
Yeah, and they kind of found one, but not really. But yeah, so very interesting. So it's also seen like this is the first time they've seen specifically Spartans, hunters, elites, and grunts. So it's very interesting. But yeah, so a good amount of lore comes from this.
And going back with the Lekolo, is this the first time that we hear from the Forerunners that they are immune to the flood?
I think so, kind of. I think so.
Because I know we've kind of known it, but I think this is the first written and visual time we're actually told that.
Yeah. And when Alex and I do these conversations, we try to remember everything that we've covered thus far, because we're not referencing everything that's happened in the future yet.
No.
We're trying to think back. I have a horrible memory.
Yeah, we're trying to build the lore as we go, because we're not trying to be like, oh, well, 7 books later it contradicts it. We want to kind of push to where we are. So I think as of this far, this is one of the first instances.
Yeah, so now let's move on to the general reaction of this. So upon hearing the plot and seeing the new Spartan Black Team, fans would quickly question the canonical legitimacy of the comic and possibly retconning the lore. Stop doing that. Stop it. Though, fans would get a quick look into Black Team and Evolution's blunt instruments, kind of giving them some more insight and kind of warming them up.
Exactly.
So, like Helljumper, Bloodline was a story told in small segment in a long Halo timeline. One fans did not ask for, but one they did appreciate. Though some reviews would give it overall good scores, but fault the storytelling and bland characters. We'll talk about that here in a sec.
Yeah, because, anyone never heard of Master Chief, the blandest character in all creation?
Yeah, and so, let's talk about some official scores. Amazon users gave it a 4.6 out of 5. Goodread users gave it a 4.1 out of 5. And IGN would give it an 8.1 out of 10.
I like the point ones. I like the little oomph up.
Well, for Goodreads and Amazon's, they're rating them out of stars.
Yes.
So, like, at half points. I don't know why.
That's why I love IGN give it an 8.1.
Yeah, I don't know why the hell IGN did that. But yeah, so overall, now let's discuss what do we think of it. And so, Alex, open up the floor.
So I would say I slightly agree that the story is bland if you're not within the Halo universe. Let's say I'm going to the comic book store. I want to pick up something. I'm like, oh, that actually looks pretty cool, like space battles, some other stuff. Would you pick this up outside of the Halo universe? Maybe if you just played the games and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. And you read through it and you're like, it's kind of boring.
Yeah.
I understand that. However, coming through the Halo universe and building up the media we've already had thus far, I think it was excellent.
Yeah.
I think it told the story really well of more Spartans, of the history of them having a family thing within training. Like we saw a little bit of that with Blue Team and Chief and Linda and them. We saw that, but not as much as we're seeing with this, where it actually like harkens back like to some deep-seated troubles that happen. I think making them more human than ever.
Giving them trauma and, just completely isolating true events into ones that help for live with that narrative,
I think it's the first time we've had like a psychosis like that has overtaken it, that hasn't been manipulated by the army or the military. It's established in his own mind, which I thought was a very interesting take that I think a lot of people suffer from.
Yeah, it's very real.
Yeah, and it happens to everyone in small amounts of things. When you retell a story, you doesn't remember everything, especially when you go through something traumatic where you think you injured or possibly almost killed someone based on your actions. Like I can see you like repressing that and being like, but I loved her type thing.
Yeah. Definitely, I agree with that. Whenever people talk about bland characters or something like that, like let's remember at the end of the day, they if you want to look at this as like a lore perspective, they were Spartans. So any character we're getting is better than none.
And not to jump in too much, but they were Spartan 2s as well.
Yeah, and they were trained to be like this. So you got to think like Chief is like that ultimate Spartan because he's playing by the rules.
Yes.
So you have these characters that are, you know, very, very unique when it comes down to them. And you get more of that insight of how they actually are in blunt instruments. But, you know, more people are going to read this comic than I think read that book. I could be wrong. But, you know, I even saw like one person on a forum. They're like, oh, there wasn't much character development in this. Like, and when people talk about character development, man, like you could have, say, a movie or a game that happens in 2 days or 2 months. Like, people don't change in that short of time, and especially in this, which was like a few hour incident. Stop talking about the lack of character development,
especially with a 5-issue comic as opposed to a like 6 seasons of Breaking Bad to establish a character. I mean, you have to understand that. In my mind, there was character development because you had 4 come around and then them do their Power Rangers ending. It was there.
Green Lantern ending.
It was there, but I think for the most part, you have to understand that these writers and these creators are doing all of this in 5 issues. Look at like Romeo Buck's story. There wasn't a huge amount of character development, but there was because you saw that. Sorry, not Romeo Buck.
Romeo and Dutch.
Romeo Dutch. Sorry, I kept saying Buck. I kept getting the mix.
Well, when we recorded that, we said Buck a lot.
Yeah, I kept saying Buck in my head for some reason. Romeo and Dutch. You saw them have an arc. And it wasn't something that was life-changing, but it was because it just showed their camaraderie build and have like an ending that was similar to the beginning. So I thought overall, like you have to appreciate that and really enjoy it.
Yeah. And as I said, I liked this story a lot. I think it was one of the more human sides of Spartans that we would see. The only thing that was jarring for me is that Forerunner tech was a complete 180 from what we know. As it's jarring, but I don't think I'll fault the comic for that too much. I think, you know, if someone were to read this without being that familiar with the Halo universe, it might give them the wrong impression of it.
Well, and Frank O'Connor wrote this, right? Like it
had a huge hand.
He had a huge hand in it. So overall, lore people and people who ran it had final say.
Yeah, and you know you got to realize this is like seeing like this was released through Bungie, you know, quote unquote, but I think 343 had that hand in it. So you're kind of starting to see what kind of ideas and what kind of changes we're going to start seeing from 343 here on.
And to expand out than just from monitors from Halo installations.
Yeah, so and even those Sentinels, we're seeing Rhubarb Pie kind of tentacle monster thing, you know?
were established for specific use.
Yeah, so interesting to see nonetheless. But overall, I think I was talking to Alex about this. I still think I might be stuck on either Uprising or this one for being my favorite.
Uprising, I got to go with. I love this one. I think still Uprising is there for me.
And here's the thing. I went into this, I saw some of the covers, and I thought to myself, like, man, like... And for the most part, we really have been gassing up everything we've covered. And I'm like, there's no way, like, this is, like, I just feel like I had this feeling, I was like, I don't think this one's going to be as good. And after the first issue, I was like, okay, I don't know why, but killing it with the comics. Bungie is killing it with the comics. And I think for me, this is at least my favorite art style, for sure. This is my favorite art style, and I think it's tied story-wise between Uprising and this. But I mean, again, I didn't think I was going to like this one, but I really did. And I thought that was really cool. But yeah, so with that being said, that is Bloodline. Do we know why it was called Bloodline? Because of family
ties, I
Family
assume.
ties? Okay.
Yeah. Jesse, what would you give this?
I'm going to say a 4.6 out of 5 just because, again, that different change in art style with the Forerunners was kind of jarring to me.
What a shame. You missed an opportunity. I'm going to give it 4 out of 4 Black Spartans.
Oh, okay. I think that's the first time you've had an even number there.
With a 0.2 thrown in with that AI.
Throw in where?
Just anywhere. Wherever you want.
All right. But yeah, so that was it. And this one was really fun, actually. I was joking with Alex how, you know, trying to research for something like artists, they're very reclusive, which is fine because this is a great art style. And, you know, this is our last recording session of the year.
Happy New Year.
So it's been a good year so far for us, starting of our humble beginnings in April. And, with that being said, the next episode that you are going to hear after this one, 2 weeks from the day that this one is released, is Legends. Very excited about this one. This will be the first movie/video episode that we will be doing, and one of the real first projects that we're going to be seeing from 343 Industries.
Yeah, and let alone another title with one word in it.
Yeah, odd how they do that a lot. And we will talk about that title, by the way, why it's called Halo Legends. So really excited about that one. And guess what? Spoiler, after Legends, it's Halo Reach. I know Alex more than me
boy.
is real excited for
So pumped.
that one.
I'm so pumped. Just pretty excited for it. But what I'm more excited for is those who've supported us thus far. Really just wanted to thank our patrons, as we do, and thank you guys so much. It's been a killer year. Jesse and I never thought we'd get this far, just to start. But second, we never thought we'd have like this much support from, one, all of you listeners that we've broken. What are we at right now?
27,000 and a half downloads?
Weirdest way to say that. I like that. We had half a download.
Or 27,500. I was thinking of like that decimal in my...
No, you're good. So thank you, listeners. And thank you, as always, to our patrons. We're going to shut them out now with AngryCanadien, Baby Z, Charles Zitter, Harvey Chong, Taqtix, Pascual Orozco, Skyjack, Slam Duncan 87, and Vexter. You guys are the real MVPs out there.
MVPs out there. We appreciate the support. If you ever want to join, we even have a $1 tier, but we have a tier for each budget.
Yeah, and like I said, you'll hear stuff like this. We're doing a post show right after this. We have those bonus episodes that you guys hear, but you can hear them a month before, and we do a bit of discussion on our Discord because we have a private Discord for it.
You can vote for our bonus episodes.
You can vote for bonus episodes. You get prints, and plenty of other really cool stuff that we've come out with, and
you get the Patreon game nights, which are basically almost like an AMA, essentially, where we just talk and have fun.
Yeah. So plenty of out there. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for an awesome year. I hope you guys, because you're going to be hearing this Friday. You'll be hearing on January 3rd to date this episode. But thank you. Have a happy and safe new year. You're all beautiful.
Yeah, and remember, as always, we're on all social channels. Please join our Discord because there are discussions every day. We get questions all the time about our thoughts on something or where we're going with this next episode or anything like that. We'll answer them gladly because we love talking to you guys. Go like our Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter. Anything and all, we're available for you. You can also find us on all podcast platforms. So if you're listening to us on SoundCloud, but you want to do Spotify, go right ahead. We're there for you.
Yep.
And with that, I'm your host, Jesse Reiners.
And I'm your host, Alex Kendall.
And thank you for tuning in to Finish the Fight, a Halo podcast.
Halo. It's finished.
No, I think we're just getting started.